Let's talk some about fasting. What is fasting? Fasting is the practice of abstaining from something good, usually food, something that's good for you for a period of time to humble yourself before God, draw near to Him, and sometimes to get a spiritual breakthrough or for some other purposes. So let's talk about some guidelines for fasting. Now, most of us are familiar with the diet. That's where for physical health, we may want to lose some weight or we may want to be a little more healthy and we cut back on food. That's different than fasting. Fasting is when we completely abstain from something, usually food, but it doesn't have to be food. It's giving up this something good for something better. So particularly in our consumer-oriented, materialistic society, fasting helps us to be liberated from the physical and provides a discipline for us to serve God a little better. So why practice fasting? Well, in the Old Testament, fasting was regularly practiced and even required on some occasions. In the New Testament, fasting is not commanded as such, but it is assumed that we would do. Jesus said, when you fast, not if you fast. So he assumes that we will do it. And he said that his followers would do it when people ask him why his then disciples didn't fast. He's like, well, don't worry, they will. So fasting was practiced for various reasons throughout the Bible, all of which we still need today. Let me just run through some pretty quickly here. When humbling ourselves before God, when earnestly interceding in prayer for a particular person or situation, when intently seeking God's help or direction, when repenting of personal or corporate sin, when helping those who are in need, when asking God to withhold His judgment, when suffering sorrow or grief, when selecting or appointing church leaders. And fasting provides many physical benefits, but also numerous spiritual benefits. Fasting helps discipline our physical bodies and desires. Fasting helps free us from physical attachments. Fasting helps us focus on what's most important. Fasting helps us say no to sin. Fasting helps us intensify our prayer lives. It helps us to be filled with the Spirit. Fasting prepares us to resist Satan's temptation. So how should we fast? Spiritual fasting usually requires advanced preparation, especially for longer fasts. Before you begin fasting, consider some of the following guidelines. Examine and purify your motives for fasting. A lot of people fast to kind of make a deal with God. God, I need this, and I'm not getting what I want, so maybe if I fast, you'll listen to me a little closer. Now, there is a time for getting spiritual breakthrough when we know something is God's will. But let's check our motives, make sure that what we're asking for isn't something just selfish, but it really is something that God wants, because we want to pray His will be done. So as you're examining and purifying your motives for fasting, make sure you're not doing it just to show how spiritual you are, like the Pharisees did. Don't put your confidence in physical acts or self-deprivation. Don't be an ascetic, if you need to look up that word, okay? Not to manipulate God or to make Him do what you want. Remember, He's God and you're His servant. Not to become, not because food or the body is somehow evil, right? Jesus didn't say food was evil. He declared all food's clean, actually. Not to have some kind of form of godliness, but to deny its power. The Bible speaks against that. Understand that fasting alone is of no spiritual value unless your heart is surrendered to God and your goal is to glorify God in all that you do. So know why you're fasting. Determine clearly the focus and purpose of your fast before you begin. Be specific in your prayers. Ask God to show you what you need to pray for, and then decide how long you should fast. If you're not accustomed to fasting, don't attempt to do a really long fast to begin with. Maybe a meal or two. Maybe work up to a day, and then maybe 2 days. And after you've done, 3 or 4 days a few times, you might be prepared for a longer fast. So make the length of time for your fast kind of match the purpose for why you're fasting. Ask God to show you how long to fast. Sometimes I don't set a time. I just say, God, I'll end my fast when I kind of sense from you that it's time to end the fast. And it may be a short one or it may be a long one. Decide when to schedule your fasting. Schedule your fast at a time when you can slow down, focus on God, and listen to His will. If you do kind of really hard labor in your job, you might want to maybe do it more on a weekend than a weekday, or make sure you can really keep up with things. Determine what kind of fast you need to do. Is it going to be an absolute fast, which means no food and no water? I recommend these to be very, very short fasts, maybe a day or less. Our bodies just can't handle more than 3 or 4 days without water. We should not try to do that except under medical supervision, okay? So schedule your fast at a time when you can slow down, prepare to be alone with God, pray during at least part of your fast, or plan prayer times together with a group of disciples. And finally, determine what kind of fast you need to do. All right, so some fasts abstain from all food, others from all food and fluids, but still water. This is the most common kind where you do water only or juice only. That keeps your body, able to function. Some fasts permits fluids, some don't. Some fast abstain from certain kinds of foods like Daniel did, maybe vegetables only, but no meats, no desserts. Some people cannot do a food fast for medical reasons. So we need to make sure that, you talk to your doctor first and find out, is your particular body capable of doing a fast? If it's not, maybe you don't need to do that, all right? And I would encourage you to seek, if you're going to do anything longer than a 24-hour fast, seek some medical advice first and make sure you're ready for this. And then decide whether it's going to be an individual fast or a fast that's going to be with a group of believers, maybe even your whole church. There's a lot more we can say about this. It's a great study, and I encourage you to study this deeply and read some good articles on it before you begin fasting. All right, God bless you in your fast.